further ado, please put your hands together and welcome to the stage the fabulous Peter Gordan and Nick Wyschna.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome. I need to just do a quick bit of housekeeping with you because those of us sitting here tonight, amazingly enough, are not alone in as much as we are recording this discussion this evening, which is going to be used as a podcast, which is going to go up on the Fringe website.
Fringe YouTube channel, yeah.
Yeah, and so for those people that haven't been able to make it, obviously, they will be able to listen back to this evening's conversation. Just before we start talking to Nick about the festival, which is lovely because this year, we're right at the beginning of it right now. It started on Friday night, and after, of course, everything that's happened over this last year or so, it's lovely to actually have a full festival programme to look forward to, and I think. In similar ways where I've been able to recently get out and watch a few other arts and entertainment bits and pieces, there's been a real feeling of relief, joy, and just a reminder that actually it's fantastic to be able to be out and about once again and to be able to watch things and experience some of the arts and creativity, particularly that we've got in this good old town of Guildford and the borough itself. So you're very welcome this evening, and for those listening as well, hope you enjoy what we are going to be talking about over the next 40-50 minutes or so.
Yeah.
So Nick Wyschna, the founder of Guildford Fringe.
Yeah.
Can I ask you, and a lot of what I'm going to ask you tonight, by the way, is literally from me as well, because there's a lot of things I don't know about the Fringe particularly. I know you and I know each other a bit now, but I'm interested as to where the idea, where that started, where that came from. How long ago did you start thinking about this?
Yeah, so I started thinking about it. For those of you who don't know, I'm an actor as well, and I was on tour with, at the time, South Pacific. So I trained in musical theatre. So I was on a UK tour, did the Barbican, then UK tour of South Pacific. And during that tour, I kind of realised I didn't want to tour anymore, and I was not really enjoying myself, quite frankly. And so I was coming up with thoughts of what I could do for a career. I was going to train in finance, mortgage broker, something like that, something to make some money for once. And so I was planning that. And so as part of that kind of retirement from acting, I decided, mainly for my mum, to put on a show. So I produced The Last 5 Years, which is a two-handed musical written by Jason Robert Brown. And we did it here in the back room. And that was basically supposed to be like my retirement show, and just to go, thanks Mum for your support, that's the last time I'm going to be on stage, and that was that. The problem with it is that we did The Last 5 Years in a little Fringe venue, which wasn't a Fringe theatre venue at the time, and it sold out. And it went down really, really well, and people after the show were saying, what's next? I was saying, oh gosh, nothing's next, I'm going to go get a job kind of thing. And me and the MD, Neil Bailey, who are really good friends, kind of said, well, if people are asking, we'll do one more play. And we put on Me as a Penguin by a playwright called Tom Wells, four-handed piece of theatre. I wasn't in it. I just produced it, learnt as I went along, and that also sold out. So during that play, I spoke to Neil, and I was like, well, there's obviously like a want for non-conventional theatre. Like, we've got the Guildford's blessed because we've got the Even Arno, G Live, we had the Electric Theatre. We're absolutely flooded with wonderful arts. But what we didn't have was affordable, accessible pub theatre. It was during that play I sat down and I thought, wait a minute, I've seen things at the Landor in Clapham. This space, the back room, is much nicer than some of the Fringe venues in London. So we just kind of went for it. And that's how the Fringe Theatre Company started in 2012. And then we've done plays, musicals, cabarets, comedy clubs since then. And it was just kind of rolling, and there was a real want for it. We started so small that we kind of found the audience before we expanded. So, which I think is the right way around. Often arts organisations go, well, that year went well, we'll do treble the run, and they kind of struggle. Whereas we started really small, and we built as the audiences grew. They wanted more, we did more. So from the theatre company, people started kind of approaching me and saying, "Oh, the space is incredible. Can we come and do something with you?" And I think when you're building a brand, it needs to be really clear about what you're building. So having a mixture of professional and local amateur or semi-pro just doesn't work. You can't do it. If you're Guildford Fringe Theatre Company is a professional producing house for fringe theatre, so we couldn't have the locals involved, which really was a bit rubbish because I love the community. So from that's where the idea for the Guildford Fringe Festival happened, because a fringe festival is, well, by definition, is an open access multi-arts festival. It's a body where it's an umbrella where everyone can get underneath it, whether you are a top pro, a professional touring company, or you are an act that has never been on stage before but quite fancies giving it a go. So that's where the Fringe Festival happened. And the first year, 2013, again, like the theatre company, we started small to make sure there was a want for it in Guildford. We did 30 events here in the back room. That was it. All of them went really well. Not all of them were brilliant. It's a Fringe Festival. It's quirky and different. Not all of them were professional. Some of them were. They all sold pretty well. So from that, we realised that Guildford wanted this kind of thing, because Guildford's got the big scale, famous acts, big theatres, and now they've got the small up-and-coming acts at the Fringe. So from that, we've grown. Last one we had was 2018, obviously, or 2000, whatever it was our 7th festival, and we had 16 venues, and we did just under 200 events. So apart from COVID, we've been growing year on year.
It was definitely 2019, by the way.
Yeah, sorry, I'm a bit confused with dates.
I remember when having obviously sort of been in Guildford for about 3 centuries, I remember you arriving on the scene, and I remember thinking, right, Guildford Fringe, and to me, as someone that's interested in arts and watching things like I do and sometimes take part in things, I thought, gosh, the word fringe to me felt like quite a pressure already you put yourself under, because you immediately think of obviously Edinburgh Fringe, you think of Brighton Fringe, aspects of London, etc. And I thought, gosh, that's an interesting setup. Did you feel, from 2012, and you talked a little bit there about the growth, are you surprised, however, because this is still a relatively short space of time, here we are 8-9 years on, if you discount last year. Were you surprised at the growth of it, or was that just, no, I always knew this was going to happen?
No, definitely not. Definitely not. When the first year, I thought, this is going to happen once, and I'm going to do it to prove that I've said yes to everyone that's asked to be involved. I thought it's going to fall flat on its face. I think when people think of Guildford, and I'm Guildford born and bred, so I know Guildford really, really well. I think the stereotypical Guildfordian is middle-class, middle-aged person who loves the Ivernano, like I do. But that's what you think of Guildford arts lovers. But it's actually not true. The people that we did the Ivernano on Friday. There was people that came to our events and the Ivernano events. There actually, the more I do, the more I realise there's one arts bubble. And of course, there's people that only love Guildford Shakespeare. They want to see that highbrow, fantastic production values. But there's so many people that go to the Guildford Shakespeare, Ivernano, and some little fringe play with no set in the back room of the pub. So, but in answer to your question, no, I didn't think it was going to grow. But every time we do something, and another weird thing about what we didn't expect with Guildford is the ruder our shows are, the more people come. Now it makes sense because people want to laugh. So we do an adult panto, we do comedy clubs, not just in Guildford anymore. Comedy clubs are kind of south of England. We do burlesque cabarets, and it's the people that go to the Ivernano that come along. Yeah. They go to the John Godber plays, they go to Noel Cower plays, and then they come to our comedy club in the back of a pub.
It's interesting, and we'll come back to the development of the Fringe and the festival a little bit more, and where it's gone and where it's come back again and all the rest of it in a moment. I just wanted to quickly concentrate on an area you've just touched on there about this arts bubble, and I think this is the case, for most towns, but the arts bubble, the challenge I think is, and maybe your experience now shows this. The challenge is to reach beyond that bubble. Yeah. So yes, you've got people that will effectively want to engage with creativity, with art, be involved, come along to whatever it may be, some of the things you've just mentioned. There still, to me, feels like there's a number of people outside that bubble, which the Guildford arts bubble needs to try and get hold of.
Mm-hmm. Do you definitely? Well, absolutely. I think you don't just put something on and people turn up. There's a lot of work that goes behind it. And I think those things happen. Like, I'll go back to the Friday night show. We opened the Fringe Festival this year at the Ivanano, as you know. Gaghouse Comedy Superstars, a few famous people off the telly doing a comedy club, essentially. Nothing more special than that. It was a fantastic evening, which sold out. But it's things like that which makes the arts bubble get bigger, because we've got a really specific audience that come to all of our events. They love to laugh. The Ivanano have got their audience. But when you do something like what we do, but in their venue, you're then sharing your audiences, which means the bubble's getting bigger and bigger. So we bring people in from outside the Guildford arts bubble because they like what we do. And some of them might go, oh yeah, the Ivanano's a bit posh for me, but they'll come if we do something there. Then they'll go in there and go, wait a minute, the Ivanano's not too posh for me at all. It's just a lovely theatre that does fantastic things. We've been to one event there, we like the venue, now we'll give that play a go we probably wouldn't have done.
Do you think the experience, and what an experience it's been, the last 15, 16, 17 months, whatever it is now, which I think we'll probably come back to again a bit later, but I think on this one particular point around different venues now entertaining different ideas, do you think that's been one of the things to take forward from this, what we've been through, where that now actually collaboration in the truest sense of the word, as opposed to the aspirational sense of the word, because everyone talks about collaboration, don't they? There used to be governments that talked about collaboration and things, and that didn't.
Let's not go down that route.
But truly now, do you think people have got more open ears and more open eyes as a result of that?
The answer, I don't know. I really hope so. Me and Charlotte have always been of the mindset, if someone wants to get involved with what we do, they are more than welcome. 2 years ago, we had Matt Pinches from Guildford Shakespeare do a talk as part of the Fringe. They do their own thing in July, so they're already really busy. This year, we've got the Ivanano involved. We've always worked with G Live. So I really hope that one positive that comes from this absolute mess is that people start working together more, because you don't really need to put up your walls and go, well, that's my crowd, I can't share that. Because as I said, they are all kind of the same people. So all you're doing is enhancing the overall Guildford arts scene. So over this particular Fringe, there's been more collaboration, definitely. Over marketing each other's shows, we talk about other people's shows, we share things on social media, as are people doing for us, which has not necessarily happened before. So I just hope that rolls on.
It's interesting, isn't it? And I wonder whether or not you think that as that continues, hopefully, that will be, just going back to this whole trying to get people in from outside the bubble, that one touch point will then help everyone else along the way, because everyone's lined up together a bit.
Yeah, I mean, Guildford Arts tried to, set up that Arts Egg website. So it's supposed to be a central point where everyone can put their events in one place, everyone shares that site, and then everyone benefits. The problem with that is someone needs to manage it, and Guildford Arts is a charity with no staff, so it's a bit of a tricky one. But if everyone did do something like that, everyone put it in one place and everyone shared that one website, just by doing that, things would be shared and with no effort. So it's always hard. Who's going to do that? Who's going to take their reins and do that role? Because everyone in arts, short staff, one, underfunded, two, and they want to do the best, but you can't do that without the financial kind of investment from somewhere.
Can I just take you back into what now feels like and they really were dark days. I mean, towards the end of last year, where you had various things going on. You had an adult panto here, you had a panto you're producing over in Godalming, and no one was really quite sure where anyone was with anything. There'd been the shock of what had happened during the year. And I think it's one of the things, a lot of people are talking about the administration of things and how difficult that was to understand how to put things together. I think one of the things that might yet still come out over where we are, and we've still got a way to go, I think, despite what the Prime Minister's talked about today, I think people personally and emotionally were shocked at what happened just because there was this pandemic that came along. As you went through into last year and you had various productions that you were preparing for, you'd cast for, you'd done everything, how was that feeling as you went through November and then this tears thing started and all of that? What was that like?
it was really, it was hard. It was really hard. I think that's the best way. It was kind of, it went so, everything changed so quickly. At the time, you didn't feel anything. You literally, me and Charlotte both decided if we're allowed to do something, we will do it. Whatever the rules are, we will adhere to those rules and push through. A lot of places just closed down. In hindsight, maybe they were right. Because the thing is, we didn't just cast them. We had the sets arrive, we had rehearsed them, and we'd opened them. So as soon as a set arrives, that's when you're gone, there we are, all the money is gone. And then you need to get through the first half of your run to get your money back. Second half of your run, generally speaking, you start making money. So in November, we were rehearsing both shows. End of November, beginning of December, we opened both shows, and we were the only pantomimes in the whole of Surrey that opened. And we got through half the run of both shows, so we kind of almost broke even. And then as we were getting further and further, someone got COVID in our cast in Godalming. So if we hadn't have had that, then we would have opened when we were supposed to without a postponement, which we did end up having, and we would have got through the whole run, because we got closed on Christmas Eve, I think we did. But as it happened, someone got COVID, so we opened 7 days late. 7 days later, we were supposed to close, which meant we lost half our run. So it was a complete roller coaster of emotion. And it wasn't until it happened, and me and Charlotte were talking about it on Christmas Day. My mum came round. She was like, "Well, this is a bit boring." We were absolutely exhausted. We had nothing left. The doors closed, and we went, "Oh God, that stress and worry and." Because you're, as a producer, you're essentially in charge of everything. So, and at this point, it wasn't just getting an audience, marketing the show, and making sure they have a good time. It was about making sure the cast were going to stay alive and not get COVID. And that was mine and Charlotte's job. That's quite a lot of pressure for. I'm just a blooming actor. So it was.
I remember at the time, because I mean, we exchanged a few messages. I know, only a few though, because I remember at the time thinking, I don't know whether or not I should text him or not, because I don't want him to think, because of all the things you've just said, there comes a point where you go, actually, he doesn't want to get a bloody text from me. So, I did. There was a, but we did exchange, hopefully, it was just sort of a one-off time. Because, of course, earlier in the year, and this is another, thing to do with the Fringe, earlier in the year, there'd been, despite all the bleakness, we had that springtime, didn't we, where of course everyone had to stay home, but actually when you could go out and do your exercise and stuff, the weather was quite good.
Lovely.
You had some stuff that you did online that you put together, with the clapping at the end and all the rest of it, which some of us took part in and filmed in various exotic locations like Pewdie Down, and but on a lovely sunset night. So there had been that sort of feeling earlier in the year, we can get through all of this. But that sort of exhaustion at the end of the year, as you enter 2021, and I mean, I think it's fair to say that because of course these new variants which caused the whole Christmas issue had come about, as you entered into January, and there we were in this complete lockdown again, where did you think the Fringe was going to go in 21? Did you at any point think that might be it, gang? Or were you going, no, it's all right, we'll be back?
No, definitely. There was definitely points where we both thought, is there a point in pushing through? Because we don't. I mean, as I've alluded to already, that there's not shed loads of money to be made in what we do. We do it because we absolutely love it, and we get paid a salary, and we're lucky to be able to pay ourselves from what we love. But we literally had nothing coming in. We paid all of our casts and everyone that supplied us our stuff all got paid, because that's how we deal with things, honestly and right. So there definitely straight off the panto, there was definitely moments we both went, let's stop. I got another job. I started picking up litter in Park Barn just because I was getting nuts. I like doing things, and we both do, and we're used to being really busy. We went from being really busy to doing absolutely nothing. So I went and did some kind of bit of volunteering, minimum wage work in Park Barn, picking up litter. And then the longer it went on, I thought, wait a minute, I need to get a proper job, because the money will run out. And so I got a management job for a print and graphics company. None of these things are my dream jobs, but you kind of start to thinking, oh, you go back to when I first set up the Fringe. Let's become a mortgage broker. I went out a meeting with a friend of ours who's a financial advisor and said, am I too old to train at doing what you do? He went, nope. He said, well, I'll take you on tomorrow. He said, I'll take you on tomorrow. So I was considering all these options. But at the end of the day, I absolutely love the arts. And I just think I'd be such a sad person.
Well, let's bring it back to now. So here we are, sort of as we started this evening, just talking about, we're right at this sort of what I would call, probably for you, maybe a sort of Christmas Eve moment, if you don't mind me taking you back to that.
Okay.
But that sort of Christmas Eve moment where you've got it all to look forward to over these. I know you've had some events, you had a huge crowd outside the Guildhall last night for the opera, which, you know, and I've always thought that sort of stuff that you do is really good, because that's all the stuff you do is great. But that sort of stuff, where you're using what is effectively a natural stage, which, to be honest with you, up until you started doing that, normally only really got used for maybe
at Christmas lights.
Well, Christmas lights and maybe a few march pasts or something, with respect. But I just think that's a great way of connecting stuff up, and of course it's quite a good mouthpiece as well, isn't it?
It's fantastic.
Literally.
Well, I mean, we started that about 4 years ago, Opera on the Balcony. It's just grown and grown and grown. Of course, it's weather dependent. But actually saying that, yesterday was not particularly lovely weather. We had about 450 people down there.
Great.
So it was fantastic. But next year we've decided we're going to do something on that balcony for free for Guildford once a weekend throughout the Fringe.
Brilliant.
Because it's, I mean, at best it's a break even. We do have a bar there. We try and get some money in. But it's just something that we try and get sponsored. We've got some great sponsors this year. And it's just a wonderful thing for Guildford. It is a truly magical evening.
Yeah. So let's just talk about this year then, and you know, this particular festival. You know, we talked about the opera yesterday, and you had the Gag House and the Arno on Friday. So when, and I know, you know, you and Charlotte are at all the events, and you know, one or the other, or normally both. You know, and are you always studying how the events go, and with regards to, because you just mentioned next year already. You know, with regards to next year. What that looks like, you know, the fact that maybe you've changed venues a bit this year. How much of that working is already going on right now for 22?
Well, we have started planning it in our heads. I think we normally start the Fringe Festival in the October before, start producing it. In terms of looking at acts going, we want them back, that's not how a Fringe works. So we don't book acts. We are an open access festival, so people apply, and the answer is yes. That is the rules with the Fringe Festival. Of course, there are acts that come and we go, oh my God, you were fantastic, and we ask them back and say, would you come back? And if they've sold well and they like the experience with us, then they do come back. That's how the Fringe has grown. The first year we did, it was me on Twitter with probably about 300 followers going, I'm going to start a Fringe Festival in Guildford, who wants to come? Then I got those 30 acts. Now, all the acts that come, I'm quite proud of our customer service kind of stuff at Guildford Fringe, because our audiences get treated well, but as importantly, all our acts get treated well. So that word spreads. Actors and performers talk, and that can work in your favour or against you. But if you're a nice person and you're running a decent festival, it'll only work in your favour. And we've had people like Simon Brodkin, Lee Nelson, Dame Baptiste, Rich Hall this year. Joe Lycett came to a festival one year, and they'd go out and go, and they're on the circuit doing their little gigs, and someone says, oh God, I need to get on the festival circuit. And they go, you must do Guildford. We get it loads. I've got get emails through going, I've been told I have to come to Guildford, even got any dates free. So it kind of grows organically, which is how everyone that does marketing knows the only marketing you really want is the organic stuff. It's the only thing you can't pay for.
Yeah. So I mean, and it's interesting because, you know, so I know people that come to your adult panto, and I mean, it's like for them it would be like going to the Rocky Horror Show. You know, there's that cult feeling.
Yeah.
And they have that. That's now there.
Yeah.
So they will always come, and that's an interesting thing, because as far as I know, I don't think anyone's done anything like that in this town. So it's interesting to already have that following. What in terms of the development of the Fringe, let's just go there a little bit. So Godalming Panto is up and running, and you know, hopefully you get a full run of it this year, and all the rest of it. You did have a little foray into Woking.
Yeah.
So what was that about, and how did that go?
That was, in being truthful again, that was about trying to make some more money. Guildford was going well. We needed, this was before I even met Charlotte, who, if anyone doesn't know, we're now married, but we met through the Fringe. And I needed to find a way of making some more money, basically. And Guildford at the time was Woking's at the time was run by Ray, who you know, really forward-thinking guy and not scared of spending money. As you can see, Woking now looks incredible. And we thought, he asked us to come over. He came to a networking event and said, come and do it in Woking, gave us the venues for free, and we went for it. Everything we've done has been a learning curve, but that was one of the biggest ones, because it really does highlight what Guildford has and what Guildford is, because we did exactly the same over there. We did comedy clubs and we did an adult panto. In fact, we did exactly the same adult panto that we did in Guildford 2 years previous, which sold out. So in my head, I was thinking, well, an adult panto, obviously just an easy sell. It kind of fell on its face a bit, and it just opened my eyes to how lucky we are with what we've got in Guildford. So we pulled back because it lost money, and it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. In my head, I thought, wait a minute, no one else is doing these adult panto things. Now they're quite a big thing nationally, but they weren't then. And I thought, well, I could probably franchise this out, get a little tour going, and go for it. But Woking kind of opened my eyes that what we have in Guildford is special. So we just refocused.
So, I mean, I'm not wanting to know your strategies necessarily, or you may not even want to share them. But I mean,
strategies.
Which you, of course, you have strategy. So is that it though? So is it always ever going to be Guildford with obviously the add-on of Godalming or is that it?
No. So our comedy clubs, our Gag House Comedy Club brand, we separated from Guildford Fringe because we did them in Guildford and they were really popular. Yeah. And then venues started saying, "Will you do a Gag House?" Guildford. It was called Guildford Comedy Club, obviously. And so would you do one in Reigate? We've got Reigate, then Dartford, Watford, Hastings. We had at one point we had 10 different places, nowhere near Guildford, so we had to think of a name. So we called it Gag House Comedy Clubs, set up a new company, and that goes really well because we book great acts. We don't do open spots, which is a spot where people try out new material. We do top end professional comedians. They all get paid properly. So when people come to the club, which is the trick, sell tickets. That's the hard bit. Once you get them in, you want to keep them, and that's why we have good acts. So the Gag House Comedy Clubs, that will go and go and go, and that is something we're looking at, like a franchisee model on that, so we might still do that. Pantomimes, Guildford adult panto, we've been approached by other venues in Guildford saying bring it to us that are bigger, and which would make more money, but it wouldn't be the same. The back room, it'll always be a special place because it's where we started. Yeah. But an adult panto in the back of a pub, there's no place that could beat that. So that won't be changing. Godalming panto, that was an opportunity that popped up, and we grabbed it and went for it, and it is growing aside from the COVID rubbish. So that will grow and grow and grow. So if other panto opportunities come up, we probably will take them.
It's interesting talking about here in the back room and having the adult panto in here, and there's something really traditional and dare I say earthy about that whole experience, which is actually very, very British. And panto is very British, as you know, although it does have origins, of course, elsewhere. But so there's something sort of very poetic, I think, around that. So, and it's interesting what you say about Woking, where it didn't really quite work like that. Do you and then with you as well. So one of the things I've always thought was quite interesting. I mean, you carried on doing various acting bits and pieces as well for yourself. And one of the things more recently has been touring, of course, with the Mousetrap.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Just tell us a bit about that, because I mean, obviously, the Mousetrap is, it is the play, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, what was that like?
First of all, that was my first play that I'd ever done professionally. I trained in musical. I went to the Royal Academy. I trained in musical theatre, and that's what I made a career out of musical theatre. Mamma Mia, South Pacific were the two major ones that I did, and then I gave up South Pacific, and from South Pacific, I just fell out of love with musical theatre. I still sing sometimes, but it's not like something that drives me like it used to. And I kept hold of my agent. Thankfully, he's really understanding. He knows what I do for a job. And 9 times out of 10, he'll call me and say, "I've got an audition." I'll go, "Can't do that, mate. I'm not going to waste the director's time by going to see him." When he called me about the Mousetrap, I was just like, well, okay. I'm not going to get it, first of all, because I've never done a play before. But I've never been seen for a professional play before, so I've got to go to the audition. I went in, and it was a 25-minute audition, which is not normal for a musical theatre audition. I walked in, they said, "Take a seat." I was like, "This is nice." So we sat down at a desk. It was so relaxed, and I did the script. We called it Sides, and 25 minutes later, I walked out, got the call that night, "You got the job." I was like, "Oh, my word." And I said to Charlotte, I have to take this. It's the Mousetrap. I've never done, and I covered, unstudied 3, there's only 7 people in the show, and I unstudied 3 of them. So my first thought was, how am I ever going to learn those words? Because I hadn't done a show for 6 years, but I've got to take it. So I did it, and I mean, it was fantastic. I went on for 2 of the 3 roles. One of them, the lead role, Giles, I went on a lot for. The guy was ill. I went on a lot. And Major Metcalf, who was an 80-year-old ex-major. I played an 80-year-old, and I'm only 37. That was brilliant. So the show was fantastic. The weird thing was, whilst I was away, Charlotte ran the whole of a Fringe festival, and I didn't come once. Yeah. That was weird. Yeah. That was really weird. Sitting in Newcastle Theatre, doing the Mousetrap. If I wasn't on that night, if I was on, it was fine because my mind was kept busy. But if I wasn't on that night in the dressing room thinking, oh my God, what is happening at the Fringe? Is Charlotte all right? I hope the shows are going well. It was a very weird experience. And there was a few comments from people in Guildford, actually. There's a few like hardcore Guildford Fringe people that said, please don't do that again. With the Fringe is you and Charlotte. We really, part of the reason we come to the show is we really want to see you two say hello. And we do have friendships we've made from Fringe, without a doubt. So it was weird all round, but wonderful at the same time. I would do it again.
I'm aware that we've already spoken for well over half an hour.
Oh, wow.
Which, well, you've mainly spoken, in fairness, which is part of the evening. And we might just take 1 or 2 questions if someone's got one in just a moment. But I've got a few more. And one of the things, so, you know, festival's underway this year. You're already in your head planning next year. Casting's is underway for Godalming.
We started auditioning for Godalming, yeah.
Yeah. So all going ahead. It's all rather nice. Where do you think Guildford needs to go? We already had a little conversation about this around this sort of arts bubble. Let's sort of just broaden that out a bit. Mm-hmm. What would you like to see Guildford do, if anything, to facilitate, support further arts and culture development in the town, the borough?
In my opinion, in every city or town in the country, I think the arts are underfunded. But I think people don't see that the benefits aren't just making people happier. The benefits go far beyond that. They bring people into the town, and a town without people has nothing, because no one does well out there. The pubs, the restaurants, the hotels, all that kind of stuff. So the economic value of the arts is huge. So I think that it needs more money. And don't get me wrong, this year's been pretty special. We got Arts Council funding this year for the first time ever. Yeah. We're not a charity, so it's quite hard to get funding. But I think local government councils need to get more behind arts. And not just the big stuff either, because I remember our year 2... so we've been sponsored by Guildford Borough Council twice. Once this year because we needed it, and the other time was I think it was in our second year, 2013-14. And we put that as part of their thingy, their sponsor package. We put their logo on all our stuff, and we had a banner outside the Star for the adult panto that year, which was probably Dick, second year Dick, I think, and they had a logo on it. And we had a call from the council saying, we've had people on the phone complaining that the council is supporting an adult panto. Can you take the banner down? And I was like, no, well, actually, my first thought was fantastic. If you're getting complaints, you're doing something right. That was great. It was a nice bit of marketing. I said, no, we're leaving it up. I want more complaints. And the council thought it was very odd. But that just highlights that it's not just the big jazzy, high-end, things like the Even Arno panto, which is fantastic. But there's a money panto. Even our panto in Godalming is not a money panto. It's still a large-scale Fringe production, really. So I think more support, not just monetary, I think promotion as well. Councils tend to be really careful about what they promote. And I do understand it, but why? Let people choose what they want to come to.
Do you think there'd be any benefit? Well, I think there would be benefit if it happened. But do you think there's any chance that perhaps, understand your point about local authority, and of course, I have to say, going forward, local authority money isn't going to get any more, that's for sure, after what has happened. What about bigger business consortiums getting together? And rather than necessarily just supporting one thing, you get a number of, and around here there are, some pretty well established companies, shall we say, both big and small, and I know you have supporters of the Fringe. But what about if they all joined together to, in fact, put together some sort of fund
Wow.
that helped. And I mean, you have to talk about how it was divided out, and I'm sure that would be an interesting conversation. But what do you think about that?
I think it'd be fantastic. I know that Paul Marcus, who you work with at Eagle, has formed a networking group for charities, and part of their mission is to find those businesses and get them together, create a pot of money which will spread out throughout the charities, which would work brilliantly for the arts as well. The problem with the arts is some of us aren't charities out of choice and some of us are, so you'd have to get around that. The answer is I think it'd be fantastic. I think the problem with it is the same as what we talked about earlier, collaboration. Every industry has problems with collaborating because everyone essentially is worried about sharing what they've got, and I think you'd have the same problem with those businesses. And also, as a job, someone would need to be the person to put all that together. But I think it'd be fantastic. How do you share it out? How do you apply for it? All those kind of things, and they're all problems. Like the Arts Council funding application that we put in was like 35 pages long. Took me 3 weeks. As a dyslexic person, took me 3 weeks to fill out. So making it streamlined, which I know is what Paul wants to do with his networking group, making it an easy process. So if it was easy and accessible to everybody, then I think it'd be fantastic. A really great idea.
Because there are going to have to be, you know, because I don't disagree at all about extra funding needed, etc. But there are going to have to be ways of how that's looked at now.
Yeah,
because
definitely.
You know, there is finite resources in place.
I guess a way to get around it would be the arts organisations taking charge, and if they collaborate more. So if we did an event at the Arno again, and that event was produced by us but at their venue, we needed X amount of money. As a duo, we go to X company that sponsored us or the Arno once and say, look, we're putting on this big event, the Even Arno will benefit and the Fringe will benefit. Will you sponsor both of us? And you can get bigger and bigger with that. You can do, I know there's talks about new events in Guildford, new festivals, new carnivals, all that kind of stuff. If everyone was involved, then a company could sponsor that event and everyone can benefit a little bit. The problem is, it always comes down to whose event is it.
Yeah. Do you think people are a little bit entrenched?
Yeah. And this is all this COVID stuff has mixed it up, definitely. But there's going to be people that will never work with other people because that is life. And I'm not taking us out of that. We are the same as everybody else. We can be protective too. But the whole purpose of a Fringe is to be inclusive. So the Fringe Festival will always be that. So if Guildford Shakespeare, the Even Arno, G Live, the Electric Theatre, any of the amateur theatre companies in Guildford, which there are loads of, as you know, from your parents being part of it, and all that kind of stuff, they're all welcome. And the good thing about the Fringe Festival is that's a rule. So if we said no, then that's not a Fringe Festival. So even if someone that we didn't personally get on with, not that I can't think of anyone, but if there was someone thought we didn't personally get on with, we still can't say no to them. That's the good thing about a Fringe. So, I mean, in that respect, we'd be a great place to be that umbrella. And we have done, we've reached out to, and we do reach out to everybody, and we continue to try and build those relationships. As I said, Matt Pinchas did an event last year. That was the first time. That was the first time that we've done something together. And the reason is because they're busy in July. That's fair enough. But those kind of things, if we can kind of help promote their event, and one day maybe one of their events will be inside the Fringe. We don't benefit financially from that. It's still their event, but all they get from it is a bit more promo. And then it's attracted to a big sponsor. Because Edinburgh Fringe has been sponsored by Virgin before. And don't get me wrong, I know that Guildford Fringe is a lot smaller than Edinburgh Fringe. But it only grows every year. Not that it'll ever get that big, because that was the first ever. But you can get massive sponsors like that. All the sponsors want is, what am I going to get out of it? And if I go to them and say, well, I've got Guildford Shakespeare involved, got the Even Arno involved, G Live involved, and us, between us we've got 100,000 email addresses, which is probably about right. As a headline sponsor, you'll get an email to all those people with your marketing. Then suddenly Virgin goes, oh yeah, I quite fancy that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it all comes down to working together, doesn't it?
Well, I've got a couple more questions for you. The headlines will be, for one of them, regrets, and the other one will be hopes. But before I do that, anyone want to ask Nick a question?
Or Peter.
Indeed, either of us. Happy to, if not. Yes, sir.
You've mentioned a lot about your charity work. I know that you do charity work personally. Can you talk to me more about how you got into setting up your own foundation?
So just for the podcast, so that was a question about charity work that you do personally on top of other things that you've done and what that's about. There's a foundation, isn't there?
Yeah. So unfortunately, we haven't kept an accurate record, but over the years, I think we've raised about between £50,000 and £80,000 for various local charities through not through hard work. I'm not shining a light on us and how wonderful we are. Basically, holding a bucket at our events, and we've given it to various charities over the years. And then I just got to a point. I was like, I just want to know where this money's going and what exactly it's doing. And they weren't all arts-related charities. All sorts of charities. But it got to a point where I really got quite passionate about the cause, and I didn't feel confident with every penny we gave away. I didn't feel confident it was going to the cause. I felt like it was going to salaries, all that kind of stuff, and I just didn't feel right to me. And so we got together. So it's myself. I set it up, and I asked my brother, my sister, and my mum to be trustees. It's called the Wyschna Foundation, and it's essentially a charity that makes the arts more accessible. So it fits exactly in with the Fringe. So we get £1, and then someone applies and says, I can't afford my drama school fees, I need £1, and that £1 goes directly to them. None of us four are paid, obviously we're trustees. The only person that's paid in the whole of the charity is our accountant, because we have to get it audited properly. And that's how that charity started. And we've given bursaries to probably about 10 actors that can, because the arts is so exclusively middle class, generally speaking. And the older I got, the more I realised how lucky I was with my mum and dad. I went to the Royal Academy, and on drama school fees, you can spend as much as a doctor spends to train. That's not very accessible to everybody. So we've given grants to people training in the arts. We've also sent families to see shows that don't go to the theatre because they need to buy food or pay their rent. And we sent an orphanage over in South Africa to see their first ever piece of theatre. It was a pantomime in South Africa, which is where my sister lived at the time. We've done all sorts of things like that, and the free tickets thing is really quite exciting, because when you go to the theatre, it's not just the theatre. The theatre's expensive to go to, but then you've got to get the train there. You've got to buy your kids sweets and ice cream, a dinner afterwards, drinks. For a family of 5, you're looking at a couple of £100 easy. So we basically pay for all of that, and we've sent numerous families to the theatre that have never been before, and the feedback is just so heartwarming. It's incredible. So yeah, I love the Wyschna Foundation. Right. It's a tiny charity. It is tiny.
And there's more details about it on the Fringe website.
Fringe website, yeah.
Okay, so my final 2 questions for you. Let's start with, and I don't know, you may have already mentioned, I don't know yet. It's been with the whole Fringe aspect and with the things that you've done around it. What's been your biggest regret?
I'm quite vocal about my opinions. I don't know if this is a regret. It is a regret sometimes, yeah. I have fallen out with people in the past, believe it or not. I think if I went, I'm an actor, I can pretend to like someone, but I don't. So I think that's my biggest regret. I could have just pretended. And we're fine, like we've done, like what we've built is quite exciting. It probably would have happened quicker if I'd lied a bit and not spoken. One thing I've got a problem with is, I've got loads of problems, but one of my problems is being undermined or bullies, that kind of thing. And so if someone does that, so either me, someone that works for me, or someone I don't even know, I just get involved. And those kind of things have caused rifts between us and the problem is people. The problem and the pro side of the Fringe is that the Fringe and Nick Wyschna are basically the same thing. So when I do something, it reflects on the Fringe, like the local elections and things like that. I'm happy, not from the Fringe account. I don't promote any political party, but in my head, I think, I'm Nick. I'm allowed my opinion. I will say my opinion publicly about who I think should run the council, the government, all that kind of thing, like anyone else does. But you do have to remember you're running a business as well. It's like driving the Fringe. We've got our car wrapped in Fringe stuff. You can't miss it. If you drive down the road and someone cuts you up, you can't say what you want to say. Do you
think you've got better at that brand management? Because it is a personal brand management, isn't it, you're talking about? So, and a lot of people know about that stuff, and some people are better at it than others, and some people have to really
Some people
work
are brilliant. Matt and Sarah at Guildford Shakespeare nailed it. They're lovely to everybody. I really admire them. I really do admire them. I think, guys, you smashed that.
So
brilliant.
Do you think for you now, so this is supplementary now that you said what you said, So do you think you've mastered that now or not?
Char?
No.
No, I haven't mastered it. I think I've got better.
You asked me to read an email before you sent it.
Yeah, I've got better because now I know my limitations. So if something comes in and I go, that makes me angry, my head goes red. I go, Char, I've written this reply. Can you read? She'll go, no, absolutely not.
Yeah.
You're not sending that email, and then she'll rewrite it. The sentiment will be the same, but much nicer. I'm never going to say. If someone says something to me and it's wrong, I'm never going to go, for the sake of money, I'm never going to go, yeah, I agree with you. I never will do that. My dad would turn in his grave. Like, I wouldn't do that to my family name. But I think, business-wise, I think it's good to have that filter, which my filter is Charlotte.
It's interesting what you said about, I'll come on to the hopes one in a minute, but it's interesting what you just said about you wish you were better at lying a little bit better and sort of, performing and acting to help, because that's what you do.
Put me on stage, I'm fine, but personally...
It's, this calls to mind, so Bono from U2, one of my favourite things he's ever said is, never trust a performer because we lie for a living. I've always thought that was...
Not with me, you can trust me.
No, I was going to say.
I'll just say it.
Well, that means you're good and honest, frankly.
Oh, God.
So let's just finally move on then, onto, I think that's quite an interesting thing, maybe cathartic for you to have said that now on a podcast.
Recorded, brilliant.
What about your hopes then? So, we've already spoken today about everything that's happened in recent times, and here you are though with the 21 festival up and running, thinking about stuff for next year already. So what's the big hope now for Nick Wyschna?
Nick Wyschna or the Fringe?
Well, as you said, that could be the same thing.
The same, yeah. I hope we carry on enjoying what we do. I think all my hopes, there's a bit morbid to end on, I guess, but all my hopes kind of go back to losing my dad when I was so young. So my biggest thing is just enjoying what we got. And this last kind of year and a half, I have struggled in my head a bit, and I've got help for it as well. Not just Charlotte, other kinds of help. And I think for me, and I never would have been able to say that before. So being open about those kind of weird things inside my head. But my biggest hope is that we just don't waste our lives trying to get something that we don't actually need. I've got so many friends, because I compare myself to people. I think everyone does, but acting wise, I did. I've got friends who live in big houses and stuff. It's so easy to go, I want that, and then you just work forever to get that. But then I have to remember, my dad worked forever, retired, and died 4 months later. I don't want that. So my hope is that I can just always remember that what we've got is good enough, and we'll keep doing things our way, which is, I hope, will always be an inclusive, fair, and honest way, and we don't work every day of our lives.
And I think we shall end it there. So, Nick, thank you very much indeed.
No, thank you.
Nice.
Thanks, guys.